Two dramas are playing out at once. One above the waves in test ranges and aircraft bays, and another on the water itself, where tankers, tolls and seizures are reshaping the calculus of regional power. Tonight we trace the lines between them, an unannounced rush to expand long-range strike options, a contest over a vital shipping choke point, and the strain a high-intensity campaign has placed on America's war stocks. In Southern California last month, naval officials say an FA-18 Super Hornet launched a new variant of a Joint Direct Attack munition, a turbojet-powered, winged version being promoted as a long-range JDAM and reported with the designation GBU 75. In the trial described by service and industry sources, the weapon left the Point Musi range and flew roughly 200 nautical miles before reaching its target. The flight, officials say, validated propulsion and guidance systems required for longer standoff missions. If those reports hold, the weapon represents a deliberate attempt to give tactical aircraft an extended reach without the cost, complexity, or inventory constraints of full-blown cruise missiles. By taking a proven GPS-guided guidance package and adding deployable wings and a small turbojet, designers have effectively created a low-cost, air-launched cruise option. Accurate over long distances and able to maneuver en route, such ammunition is meant to be carried in greater numbers by fourth-generation fighters. Industry spokespeople describe it as bridging a gap, a middle tier between short-range gravity munitions and expensive, scarce cruise missiles. Timing matters. The test occurred as US forces have been operating under a tactical pause with Iran, a truce that has not resolved the underlying contest over maritime control. The quiet flight trial suggests planners are preparing for a different future, one in which aircraft can hold targets at sea at much greater ranges and where placing mines or striking ships from safe state send-off distances becomes a routine option. The logic is straightforward. Bring the cruise missile concept to the JDAM family at a lower cost, enabling larger inventories and more flexible use in wartime. But for navies operating in contested littorals, that flexibility changes the math. Instead of relying solely on a narrow set of costly cruise missiles, commanders could load strike packages with multiple long-range GPS-guided munitions, dispersing risk and increasing salvo sizes. In practice, fighters could carry more weapons into theatre without emptying precious stocks of more sophisticated missiles. For defenders, a dense, lower-cost attack wave is a very different challenge for interceptors and layered air defences than a handful of high-value cruise missiles. Yet the backdrop to those tests is unmistakable. Waterways are being contested, an economy of tolls has emerged at sea, and a shadow fleet still moves oil revenues that sit at the centre of the crisis. Iranian officials have been explicit about turning control of the Strait of Hormuz into a political and economic lever. A senior parliamentary official, Hamidreza Babeh, announced that Iran had already taken in revenue from tolls imposed on ships transiting the strait. He said the first revenue received from the Strait of Hormuz tolls was deposited into the central bank account. That short, concrete, and deliberately public statement makes clear that Tehran is not only posturing. By monetizing transit, Iran is signaling an intent to normalize a new order at the choke point, inspected, screened, and taxed passage, rather than the free global flow that underpins energy markets. The Strait of Hormuz is not beside the story, it is at its center. The corridor carries roughly 1/5 of the world's oil and gas flows, and any sustained disruption ripples through prices, insurance costs, and global trade routes. Against that backdrop, American forces have moved beyond confrontations inside the narrow Channel ISTI. Over recent weeks, US naval and maritime interdiction teams have seized multiple vessels alleged to be transporting Iranian crude or otherwise violating sanctions. One seizure, reported as the MG Majestic, was said to have been conducted in the wider Indian Ocean, far beyond the narrow Channel of Hormuz. Officials urged the Majestic carried nearly 2 million barrels of oil. Similar figures were attached to another seized vessel, the MT Tafani. Taken together, these operations are intended to choke off revenue lines that finance Tehran's military activities. Those interdictions have also fed a narrative of escalating maritime control and countermeasures. US rhetoric has been stark. At public appearances and on social media, senior American voices have asserted control of the waterway and warned of punitive measures. One prominent statement put it bluntly: Trump declared, "We have total control over the Strait of Hormuz. No ship can enter or leave without the approval of the United States Navy. It is sealed up tight until such time as Iran is able to make a deal. Words like that are designed to project deterrence. They are also a message to the global commercial community. The transit regime is no longer business as usual. But words meet reality at sea, and Tehran has shown it intends to back its claims with both policy and force. The tolls and the seizures have already forced some shipping lines to reroute, seek alternative insurance, or delay operations, raising costs and complicating logistics across the region. A shadow fleet has reappeared to move oil discreetly. Rerouting tens of millions of barrels of oil or finding substitute shipping lanes is costly and time-consuming. Energy markets, freight carriers and insurers all watch closely because the sustained rerouting would be a major economic shock. At the same time, US military logistics are undergoing a less public crisis. Multiple media reports and Pentagon statements have highlighted rapidly declining munitions inventories after weeks of intensive strikes and intercepts, warning that key categories of missiles and interceptors have been consumed at unprecedented rates. That shortage is a major reason planners are accelerating trials of lower-cost, long-range options. Figures cited across reporting are stark. Significant percentages of certain precision inventories have allegedly been expended, and some production lines are running at full tilt but cannot be scaled overnight. The result is a scramble for capacity. Defense officials have reportedly approached major American manufacturers, including automakers and other heavy industry firms, to see whether assembly lines can be retooled to produce missiles, loitering munitions, or components at scale. The objective is simple: shorten the time to replenish stocks and disperse reliance away from a handful of specialized contractors. The kinds of weapons singled out as critical are familiar. Interceptors that protect forces and cities, from ballistic threats, theater strike systems used to hit targets ashore, and Tomahawk-class cruise missiles used for precision deep strikes. Shortfalls in those areas force commanders to consider alternatives, lower-cost attack options, volume over single-shot precision, and a heavier reliance on air-launched and truck-launched loitering weapons. That thinking helps explain why a JDAM variant with wings and an engine suddenly looks so attractive. It promises reach, accuracy, and numerical advantage, but there are no easy fixes. Reconfiguring Detroit factories to build military ordnance is a long, complex process. Tooling, quality control, explosive handling, safety, software, and guidance integration. These are not capabilities you build overnight without rigorous oversight. Officials warn replenishing missile stocks could take months or even years, depending on demand, subcontractor capacity, and export controls. Elsewhere in Tehran, the public face of resilience is deliberate. Stat. E-outlets circulated images and footage on April 21st showing ballistic missiles on the move in several cities. Those events were presented not simply as military pageantry, but as a statement of continued deterrence. Iran's speed in updating and reloading missile and drone launchers has reportedly surpassed even its pre-conflict pace. Sayed Morjid Mousavi, identified as an IRGC aerospace commander, said since the ceasefire began on April 11th, the United States has had to bring in ammunition from the other side of the world in a trickle. They have lost this phase of the war as well. They have lost the Strait, they have lost Lebanon, and they have lost the entire region. Whether those claims are borne out by independent assessments is the subject of intense debate among intelligence analysts, military planners, and regional observers. What is clear is that Iran is using both kinetic and narrative means to demonstrate it can weather pressure, replenish stocks, and signal vulnerability. Belissian American posture, video releases showing underground launchers and repair operations are intended to broadcast endurance and message to domestic audiences and foreign capitals that Tehran's infrastructure remains active even under duress. For US planners, the core operational question is how to prevent a single point of failure from defining strategic outcomes. If missile inventories narrow and interdictions at sea become routine, a balanced approach must combine diplomatic pressure, legal interdiction, and technological adaptation. The JDAM LR test points to one technological answer: buy low, field large numbers of lower-cost air-launched precision weapons that can be used in volume, but there are limits. GPS guidance can be jammed or spoofed. High-value targets may demand higher survivability or terminal seeker solutions. Layered air defences remain a persistent problem for standoff weapons of all kinds, and more reach without better sensing and decision cycles risk. Wasted sorties and misallocated munitions, surveillance, battle damage assessment, and resilient targeting networks are as essential as the weapons themselves. Legal and diplomatic questions will shape the campaign at sea. The seizures of tankers accused of moving illicit cargoes raise complex issues about jurisdiction, evidence, and the proper role of naval interdiction in peacetime or near peacetime. The vessels taken into custody, the legal filings attached to their cargoes, and the diplomatic responses that follow will all influence how maritime law is interpreted in the months ahead. For now, interdictions remain one of the few levers the United States and its partners can use to choke off revenue streams without widening the conflict into full-scale war. Industry capacity is another lever and a choke point. Production lines can be rapidly expanded and new families of weapons fielded in the numbers required. American forces will reduce the pressure to save the highest value M from Arta. Israel's, if not commanders, will be forced into harder choices. Rationing targets, prioritizing assets, and accepting greater risk in theaters where adversaries possess capable missile and drone arsenals. The theater commander's calculus is tactical as well as strategic. Longer-range, lower-cost munitions enable strikes from safer standoff, but they do not absolve the need for persistent surveillance, timely intelligence, and resilient command networks. Without those elements, additional reach can become inefficient reach. More aircraft loitering with extended-range munitions still need reliable sensors, clear rules of engagement, and robust battle damage assessment to make each sortie count. What we are seeing now, tests on runways and sea ranges, tolls and seizures on the high sea, and frantic conversations in company boardrooms and defense ministries, are all part of the same strategic contest. They are measures of adaptation, how to project naval and air power when inventories are constrained, when adversaries have options to disrupt maritime commerce, and when the political, economic, and industrial dimensions of warfare are deeply intertwined. As night falls over the Gulf and the world watches tanker tracks and satellite feeds, two realities are clear. The battlefield for sea lanes and oil revenue has moved into the open, and the demand for munitions and creative operational choices has never been higher. Whether the decisions taken now across air ranges, shipyards, and boardrooms will be enough to sustain a prolonged pressure campaign remains uncertain. What is certain is that the dynamics at sea, in production plants, and in diplomatic chambers are now inseparable elements of the same strategic contest. We will continue to follow the tests, the seizures, the policy choices, and the industrial responses, because each will leave its mark on the balance of power, the cost of conflict, and the lives that depend on the safe passage of commerce through one of the PLEC and its most consequential waterways.